Thanks for coming out to our town hall meeting to share more about our Foundation for the Future facilities plan. So we appreciate your willingness to engage with us, to hear the factual information. The way we're going to organize tonight is I'm joined by 7 of my colleagues that are going to help present various aspects of our Foundation for the Future plan. And then at the end of that, 2 of my colleagues that are in the audience right now, they will be around with microphones because we are live streaming this so we could, the audience at home could hear. We will have microphones for you to ask questions that any of us up here would be more than happy to answer for you, so you leave well informed about all aspects of the plan. As you walked in, you should have seen a bifold out there that has a lot of the information that's in the plan that you can reference afterwards, as well as there's a QR code, as well as a website that's on the board, that you can always go to that website and see a lot of the information that's been presented here, a lot of the visuals that are here as well. As we go throughout tonight, we're going to have a variety. As I said, I'm going to get us started, and a variety of my colleagues are going to come up and present. So I'm just going to introduce them now so we all know who is here. First of all, I'd like to introduce one of our board members, Richard Micco, our Assistant Superintendent, Jenny Pelko, our Operations Manager, Steve Breckner, and going in the back, board member, Eric Wall, Sarar Elementary School Principal, Emily Young, Sarar 5th grade teacher, Angela Corrigan, and a longtime community member and member of our facilities committees, Kristen Mayo. So I appreciate your time being here, sharing the work that we've been doing for multiple years on our plan. So what we want to do tonight, as we shared, is share some of the background on the Foundation for the Future facilities plan. We want to talk to you about how that plan has been developed and revised and evolved over the last 3 years. And we want to base that on the facilities plan, facilities need, the planning data that we've used to make these decisions. And then finally, we'll show scope and cost and timeline. And then, as I said, at the end, we will answer any questions you may have for us. So as we take a look at the plan and the work that we've done up to this point, we started to take a look at all of our facilities and say, hey, 10, 11, 12 years ago, we renovated the high school, we renovated one of our preschools, we built the middle school that we're sitting in now. We knew that the last parts of our facilities plan was our elementary buildings. And as we take a look at the district that we want to be for our kids and our community, it's not just about the great work that we're doing inside of our schools every day, but ensuring that we have schools that meet the needs of our learners today and for generations to come. So we ensured as we started this conversation and this work that we knew one thing that was really important and it came out of the committee work that we did is that neighborhood elementary schools were really important. Years ago in Strasville, we had 8 elementary schools, then we went down to 7, and we've been at 5 for the last 10, 11, 12 years. But we knew that having 5 our neighborhood elementary schools was something that was critical. And if you're not familiar with the holistic nature of our elementary schools, we have 5 elementaries, as I said, and 4 of them are in each quadrant of our city. So we have Sarar Elementary School, which is in the northwest corner. We have Whitney Elementary School in the northeast. We have in the southeast, we have Chapman Elementary School. Southwest, we have Kinsner. And somewhat in the center, we have Moraski Elementary School. And we know we wanted to preserve that neighborhood school feel to our community and our district, that was a core value. The other thing we needed to look at, of those 5 elementary buildings I just mentioned, 4 of them were built in the late 50s and early 60s. So our forefathers in Strongsville saw a need as this community continued to grow and develop that they needed to invest in the future of their schools by building new elementary schools, and those happen to be built in a short period of time frame, which leads us to today, where all of our buildings are getting to an age where many critical repairs and maintenance needs are necessary. Now that doesn't mean our schools haven't been maintained. Mr. Breckner is going to share in a little bit the diligent work that we have done to maintain these buildings, but they were designed for a different era of education. They were designed for different safety needs. My job as superintendent, I've been superintendent here for 11 years now. The work that we did in safety and security in 2015 is way different than the safety and security work we do in 2026. And we need to ensure our buildings are built with safety in mind for our students, as well as different enrollment trends that we've seen over the past decades here in Strongsville. Maybe I need to stand a little closer. That's a great start. Dan's gonna go up there and hit it for you. Thank you, Dan. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Breckner, who's going to talk about a few items about what we see in our facilities right now.
Hello, everyone. So what we're seeing from the aspect of our buildings is that they are aging. Many of them were built in the 60s, and they're starting to age in a way that it's not just Band-Aids anymore. We have to do some major surgery to get the buildings back to where they need to be sustainable for years to come. So what I mean, to put a fine point on that, is HVAC systems, fire security systems need to be upgraded. The technology within the buildings is constantly needing upgraded. Also, what we're looking at, and we had to kind of bite the bullet last year with Whitney and also Chapman, is of course a new roof. And new roofs are not cheap. All of our buildings are starting to show those signs of wear and tear, where it's more than just doing a facelift. We need to go in and change some of the infrastructure within the buildings. That is happening every day. The buildings are getting older. We have a great maintenance department that is keeping up on work orders and trying to maintain, but the reality of it is the equipment has aged to a point where we either need to start investing heavily into older buildings to try and sustain them for as far in the future as possible, or use our resources to start building new buildings, is the point that we are at. As far as the safety and security expectations, to get to kind of put that into context, when I took the job over, we had some money through the diligence of the administration and the players in getting this building built and the high school renovated. We had a little extra money. What we needed to do was make our elementary safer. A lot of them were built at an age where you would come into the building and the office was the centrally located piece. That is not the way schools are designed today. Now, you can't even get into the school without going through the office first. So we had to do some major upgrades, change around the footprint of some of the classrooms, the buildings, just to meet the needs of what the security expectations are today. As we've progressed, we of course did that, and now we have secure vestibules in every building. We were able to obtain a $750,000 safety and security grant. We were able to upgrade all of our camera security systems, add to the cameras that are within the buildings. When I took over the job, we had 8 cameras average in our elementary buildings. Now we're averaging 35 cameras. The high school and middle school have somewhere between 200 to 250 cameras in them. All of that requires background infrastructure that is also aging and needs to be kept up. As technology progresses and as security expectations progress, we of course need to invest more into those areas. Investing into an older building, putting more wiring in, buildings that were not designed to have necessarily all the wiring shoved into them. For example, Chapman and Whitney, there are areas where the drop ceiling is right up against the decking. That's not the way schools are designed now. The way schools are designed now is there's always some fly space in there so that there could be some infrastructure added. So when you're faced with those kind of challenges, you have to get creative. There may be some conduit that needs to go down the walls. It may not look the best. You try to make it look as good as possible, but you're really retrofitting new technology into an old building. We're also able to upgrade our radio system, not only to a fully digital system, and invest in an antenna that's centrally located so we have better coverage. Window film on all of our entrances to make them, from a visual standpoint, you can't just see into the buildings coming in from the outside now, but also from safety and security, it takes a lot more effort, a lot more time to breach those doors that are always locked to get into the building. With that, some privacy and security film throughout the buildings. And then also we were able to, if you were to go around the high school, you can see some of the decals that are there. Those aren't just for aesthetic value, there's also safety film for security purposes there. We're just to the point where we can keep trying to adopt the new technology, we can keep trying to adopt to the new security standards, but again, you're trying to fit the proverbial square peg in a round hole. And we're starting to get to the point where not only are our buildings needing major maintenance, but to keep progressing in the area of safety and security, we have to make some decisions about how that's going to look, and it's much more costly to retrofit in many of those cases.
So as we take a look at all of those factors, as Steve said, and I think that line at the bottom of the slide is important, we have done and we can continue to do the ongoing repairs, but that does not eliminate long-term obligations. And right now, if this bond issue does not pass in May, we have the decision, we already have $10.8 million of projects for critical repairs set up, as we talked about boilers, roofs, windows, doors, safety issues that need to happen, that are there if we know in the next 3 years we're not going to have new buildings that can meet the needs of our students today and into the future. You can see here, one of the things in the top, your right-hand corner is ADA accessibility challenges in older buildings. So it's an important core value for all of us that students are able to attend their home school. If you live in the Whitney neighborhood, you should be able to go to Whitney School no matter what physical disability you may have, whatever learning needs you have. And because of space issues and ADA challenges, that's not the case in our district. So students with certain disabilities that live in the Whitney area or Kinsner area have to go to elementary school and different schools that have more accessibility and provide those services for space challenges. And we are having space challenges because we are continuing to see increased enrollment in our school district. So I love to share, it's a point of pride for us. Mr. Micko says this all the time, is that we should be extremely proud that because the mayor's here, because the great city that he runs and leads, and what we do as a school district, we're, as far as I know, one of the few, if not the only school district or community in Cuyahoga County that's growing with school children. And so it's not growing by leaps and bounds, but it's growing by 35 to 40 to 50 students each year. And as we take a look at the long-range planning we've done 2 different enrollment studies with 2 different companies to ensure that the data is accurate, and both studies said the same thing. You are going to continue to have about 2,300 K-5 students in your district throughout at least the next 10 years. And so when we take a look at that number of students, and that's similar to what we have now, that it's not just a bubble. It's not like, hey, we'll get these couple of grade levels into the middle school and then we'll be okay. No, the issues we're having with space and enrollment are going to continue to be challenges for years to come. And that gets us to the next point that we want to share with you, is because of the growing enrollment, because of our aging infrastructure, we have significant instructional space limitations that we don't feel are in the best interest of our kids. And we've heard from our community that having things like mobile units is not meeting the needs of our kids or the expectations of our community. So who better to hear it from than our principal and our 5th grade teacher who's actually out in the mobile unit to share what is really happening in our buildings and some of the space challenges we're having.
All right, I'm Emily Young. Just to remind you, I'm the principal at Seurar. And as you can see, we have 14 mobile classrooms. At Seurar specifically, we have 4. So it's pretty hard to miss when you pull up to our building. To the side, there are 2 big mobile units, or as some call them, trailers. In each mobile unit, we have 2 classrooms. And right now at our building, we have all 5th grade being educated out in the mobile units, and then also our gifted math. So that's 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders who go out there for a portion of their day. Angela Corrigan here, she is a 5th grade teacher. She's been out in the mobile unit for the last year and this year. So we wanted her to share a firsthand experience of what that's like, because even though they do a fantastic job and really try their best to make it a great learning environment for our kids, there are some challenges that come with it.
Thank you. So we are doing the best that we can in the situation we are given. The kids are doing an amazing job at adjusting to that. But with that being said, security is always an issue, and I have to radio in when a student has to use the restroom. We incorporate restroom breaks when they are in the building, but sometimes, they have to go when they're with us. So I have to radio a student in, and then they come back. And when they come back, we have to have someone look out the window to see who it is before we open the door. So it's kind of a sad time that we have to do that with kids. So if we have, for example, the people coming to put the carpets in, the kids have to ask me to see who it is before they can open up the door. The acoustics are horrible in the mobile units. The district did put up some soundboards, which did help a little bit, but talking or when the other classroom right next to me moves, or a desk or a chair moves in my room, it's very distracting. When it rains, like this morning, it's very loud. When it's windy, it makes these noises in the mobile unit. So we do have some students who are kind of scared of the weather, and being in a mobile unit does not help that. What else? We have space issues. So when I have an intervention specialist in my room, she's at a table and I have to bring up chairs to my desk. Where in the past, when I was in the building, we had lots of room where we could have different stations set up. So that is a big issue as well.
So just like with our mobile units, we also have space issue throughout our building. So specifically at Soror, our gym also is used as our cafeteria. So our classes for gym go right up until 5 minutes before lunch. So those 5 minutes, we're transferring all the tables down from the wall into the cafeteria, opening up the doors to the cafeteria, and then we have hundreds of kids that are going through to get lunch. After they're done with lunch, we have 15 minutes to clean everything up, put the tables back, clean the floors, and then have gym class again. So that's one example. Also, we have a wonderful stage where we could perform. However, right now that's being used as our building storage area because we don't have other space. When you walk around the building, we have these little alcoves. We call them our glass houses because they're glass windows. It's a hallway that leads to an exterior door. And in those spaces, we're utilizing those spaces for meetings that teachers are having or administrators are having. If they're not getting reception in their room or if there's other students in their room at that time. We're also testing students in those little spaces. The biggest thing that we have is our media center. It's a beautiful media center, but it's used for lots of different things. We have band and orchestra practice in there every day, one or the other every day. And right off of the media center, they actually have built walls, and that's where our guidance counselor is, her office, and our reading specialist, and our sensory room. So that can be very challenging to have kids who are already maybe struggling with reading or emotions, trying to work through those things and learn when there's band and orchestra who are practicing right outside their door. So obviously space is definitely a concern, and as we continue to grow, we do the best with what we have. But it does make an impact on our kids and our teachers and everyone that's working for Strongsville Schools. And just like all the things I'm talking about, I can really speak on just Soror because I know that so well. But I know every building is facing, all the elementary buildings are facing very similar challenges as well throughout.
And as Emily said, this is the case at all of our elementary buildings. Every elementary building but Whitney has a mobile unit. So there's 2 units at Soror, as we heard, 2 at Chapman, 2 at Moraski, and 1 at Kinsner. And you could just replace Soror with the name of another building, and those are the same challenges we're facing. And again, our staff and our teachers do an outstanding job to do the best that they can. But if I have to get tutoring in reading, tutoring in learning English as a second language, and I'm doing that in a hallway between 2 glass doors, those are not ideal situations what our kids need for their education. So as we move on to take a look at the planning process, and we see the challenges that we're facing, and we take a look at how did we get here? What was the group of people that got together and the work that we did to get to the ultimate recommendation of the Foundation for the Future Facilities Plan? I'm going to ask Kristen to come up, who's been a key partner in that work, to share the pathway that's led to where we're at today.
Hi, I'm Kristen Mayo. I've been a part of the Facilities Committee since 2014. We are a board committee. We get together on a regular basis that varies from year to year. But we are charged with looking at all of the facilities, all of the property that that the district owns, analyzing the needs, looking over the finances, and making recommendations to the board as to what needs to be done for the following year and what is upcoming in the needs. I'd say about 3 years ago, we really started to focus on the elementary schools because we saw that as one of the biggest needs in the district. So a lot of what has come up over the past year has actually been a 3-year process that we've been looking at, taking into account all of the different variables and all of the different details. The committee has grown and has involved a lot more people than just the facilities committee initially. And we looked at every detail, every possible plan. We started with many choices and vetted everything. Sometimes that meant going back and rediscussing another issue because another new detail came up. But I truly feel like we, as a group, looked at all of the details and really came up with what was the best solution for the city of Strongsville. Anything?
So stay up here with me, Chris. We're going to go to the next slide. And what we want to do is share the process that we went through. As Kristen shared, we vetted everything. We went through a variety of ideas and concepts. And so when we got everybody in the room together, we started with kind of a visioning activity of where do we want to go with our elementary schools? What do we see as in the future of Strongsville that's going to serve our community for the next 60, 70, 80 plus years? And so we took a look at every configuration from what we currently have of 5 elementary schools, and what would it look like if we maintained those 5 elementary schools in similar locations. And then we took a look at all the way down to just 1 elementary school, because it is a thing in education now that people are consolidating. Neighbors around us have gone down to 1 large elementary school. So we want to walk you through that process a little bit, and feel free to jump in whenever you want to jump in. But we took a look at, and I'm going to start with kind of the outlines. We started with that 5, just replicating what we have. Let's take a look at keeping the 5 elementary buildings that we have. And so when you take a look at that and you would evenly divide all of our 2,300 K-5 students across 5 elementary schools, right, that's going to be 450-ish, somewhere in that range, 400 to 450 kids per school building. Now, there's this group we'll talk about in a little bit. It's the Ohio Facility Construction Commission, and they oversee and give guidance on best practices for building schools in the state of Ohio. And so when we took a look at that setup, the OFCC came out and said, we don't build buildings that small anymore. They're not efficient. They're not as efficient and cost-effective as they need to be, and so we look at anything from 600 to 700 to 800 to be the starting point for the elementary buildings. So taking that into consideration, as well as we understand the financial times that we're in, that we took 5 elementary schools off the table and said, we've got to do more. There's more responsible consolidation that we could do. Rather than 5, we've got to look at other options. So 5 elementary buildings were off the table. Then we went to that other end of the spectrum, which was 1 building, 2 buildings. So if you remember, as I said, we have 2,300 K-5 students. That's what we're projecting into the future. That would mean we would put 1 building in our community that would have 2,300 students. That would be the largest building in our district. It would be larger than our 500 students, larger than our high school, 1,000 students larger than our middle school. That's a lot of kids. And the community or the committee decided that, yes, that may work in other districts because other districts are smaller than Strongsville, 2,000 to 3,000 students, we're 5,600, 5,700 students, but it doesn't work here. And then point B is we really don't have the property. We don't have the size property to have 1 mega school or 2 larger schools, especially since all of our properties are in neighborhoods and side streets. It just wouldn't work. So we spent a lot of time taking a look at 3 total schools or 4 total schools. Would you like to talk about the 3 total schools? Okay. All right. So I want you added if I missed anything. So for the 3 total schools, we wanted to look seriously at that. That would mean building 2 brand new elementary schools that would be about 1,000 students each, and retaining Kinsman Elementary School as a K-5 school that would be about 500-ish students. And so we partner with architects that they provide pre-bond guidance for us, and we said, hey, we want you to see if we can feasibly, responsibly get it down to 3 elementary schools. Take a look at the available properties we have. do a fit plan, which means is it going to fit in the property that we have, and let us know what you find out. And they came back and said, hey, we can do it. And it can work on the Albion Middle School property. That's one of the properties we're looking at. If you know Western Albion, where the old Albion Middle School was, there's enough property there. But you don't have another property to fit it responsibly. We can fit it, but we're going to go front to back, side to side, and it's going to be 3 stories tall. Is that what you want to be a good, responsible neighbor? And so again, we took this plan that we vetted multiple times, and we shared it again with everybody and said, is this what we want to do? Do we want to consolidate to this level? And resoundingly, he came back to say, no, that's not being a good partner, that's not being a good neighbor, that's not being a responsible steward of our community moving forward. So that's how we landed on 4 schools. 4 schools that we'll talk a little bit more, Eric's going to talk more in detail about what that exact plan was, but that's how we eliminated the 5 school option and the 1, 2, and 3 school option when we considered neighborhood compatibility, as we talked about, overall site safety, and understanding that traffic is a challenge in our city, and how can we help support better traffic flow versus increasing that by putting large buildings with large numbers of families and students in a neighborhood. Next slide, Dan. So with that, I'm going to ask, thank you, Chris. Anything else you'd like to share? Okay. So Steve is going to help me out here. What we want to kind of bridge here is, okay, we got this idea through this committee process that we want 3 new elementary schools to be built. And Kinsler, we're going to continue to use as an elementary school, that idea. How do we decide what we do? We needed to take a look at our current buildings, and he's going to share what all of these numbers mean to us.
Thank you. So, as Dr. Rod was saying, we partnered with a group, the OFCC. They have been doing construction for Ohio schools. Where they really have come to the forefront is when the schools had a tobacco settlement, and there was a lot of money available. There was a whole formula that was created for schools to have new buildings being built. What they do is they come in a very responsible way and say, what's not on the table first, and then, you know, if you're asked, or if anybody asks you, you can tell them, we did not go into this with the intent of building new buildings. This was not a foregone conclusion. The first step we had to take is, if we were to renovate our current buildings and bring them up to code, bring them up to all the compliance that we talked about before, how much would that cost? Now, they have a formula that they use, and that's what's reflected here, is that if anything is over 67%, as far as replacement costs and even stuff like insulation, the wiring, all of that, if that goes to renovate is over 67% of the building's worth, they say it's a recommendation to build new. At some point, and you know this as homeowners, you know this maybe as business owners, at some point, no matter how attached you are to the older things, they've had their day, and sometimes building new is the better and the more responsible of the 2 options. What these numbers reflect is all the numbers in red, of course, are above 67%, so the Chapman, Whitney, Sarar, Moraski, and now Moraski, there's 2 numbers there because there's the front half of Moraski that's been there for a very long time, and there's the newer section that was built on the back. So that's what that reflects there. So when they came in and evaluated all of our elementaries, the only 2 that they said, hey, it's worth doing some renovation to is the back half of Moraski and Kinsner, which makes sense because those are the 2 sections that were built most recently. All the other ones, they said, as you can see up there, Whitney's at 83% and 74%, 77%. In other words, their feedback to us was, if we were to be involved in this, we would say, build new. That's where the biggest bang for the buck is going to be for the community. So again, did not start with new buildings. That's where the numbers led us to.
And as Steve said, as we take a look at these numbers, these are just to get our current buildings up to code with current standards. It's not adding on to address our enrollment issues, it's not adding nice features, it's just getting it up infrastructurally to 2026 standards. So at this time, we've got this data. We know we want to have, we know the plan's 4 buildings. We've got this data to say what we want to renovate versus replace, and then we take it to the Board of Education for consideration. So I'm going to ask Eric Wall, our board member, to come up and share an overview of what the plan that came to the board and they ultimately approved.
Thanks, Dr. Ryba. I'm Eric Wall. I'm one of your newest board members. I got to vote on this on my very first meeting. A lot of pressure. And I came into it kind of skeptical. And I think we've laid out a pretty good business case for you. I think you've heard the why, and I think you've heard the why now. And I have the fun part, I get to tell you the what. And I have to tell you, all of the decisions that you've heard so far have been rooted in data. The data is driving the business decisions. And I got to unpack that. So ahead of that first vote, being a little bit skeptical, I asked for more information. Tell me more. I want to know. And they talked about 1 school versus 5 new schools. They gave me an entire plan, almost like a menu, all color-coded. We have blue plans, orange plans, yellow plans, green plans, red plans. And if, as a board member and representing the community, you start to think about what are we optimizing for? What do we want our district to be? What's the identity been before? Are we optimizing for efficiency? Well, that would be 1 school, 2 schools. Those are really big schools. Most of our schools are in neighborhoods. So we go out to the neighborhoods and talk to those people, and they don't want 3- and 4-story buildings in the backyards. It's not surprising. Also, these schools are more than just educational institutions. They're community centers. They're places where people meet. A lot of them have playgrounds where neighborhood kids go out and play. And I think that having all of these neighborhood schools, it's been built into Strongsville for decades, helps when you hear about things that people want to continue to move here. Our property values continue to grow, the best in Ohio, by the way. The reason, a big reason for that, is our school system and these neighborhood schools. People love that feeling. And when you get schools that are too big, if you optimize for efficiency, they become less educational and more institutional. And I think you know what that feels like. The culture starts to break down. So if we're not optimizing for 100% efficiency, because it doesn't make sense, what are we optimizing for? Well, let's optimize for the future. Let's optimize for education. But we can't have 8 motif schools. That doesn't make sense. There's no operational efficiency there. You can't even keep quality standards if you try to have 8 schools or 5 schools. But 4 schools, which was called the yellow plan, by the way, really should have been called the gold plan. Because the more I dug into it, it was the Goldilocks plan. It was optimized for Strongsville. Optimized for our 4 quadrants. If you look at our city, we're a pretty good square. And we have elementary buildings and facilities in each one of those squares. So no matter where you live, on the northeast of town, on the southwest of town where I live, all of our kids have fantastic elementary schools. Oftentimes you can walk to them. They're anchors of those neighborhoods, anchors of those communities, and that is what people back in the 60s decided that is part of the core of Strongsville's identity. So the Goldilocks plan, let me tell you about it. 3 new schools. Albion, Chapman, and Soror properties. So Albion, new school, Dr. Iva talked about, it was where the middle school is now. We will be building something there, and these other 2 schools will be built sort of like the building that we're in now, adjacent to the current building. So we can still do operations and continue to service all of our students while we build these new properties. All of them are 700. So that's bigger than what we have now. It's bigger than our biggest elementary school. So are we getting some efficiencies there? Absolutely. but we're also getting it where it still feels like a community school. And then renovating Kinsner, 500 students. That's the school near me. It's our newest school. And we have another slide that will talk a little bit more about Kinsner's plan. And then renovating Moransky. So Moransky is kind of interesting. We have another slide about that. So let's just go to the next slide, please. So Kinsner Elementary. We don't want to have a school that's like the envy school, right? We have 3 new schools. How do we address and be equitable to those learners that live in the southwest part of Strongsville? You remodel it. You don't go crazy, but you try to create those learning environments because it's newer. That cost model works out for us, that we can create those learning opportunities so those kids there are caught up with the other modern facilities that we're building for them. So we have paint, flooring, but a lot of that is sort of table stakes, right? We have outdoor learning spaces. That's kind of new. We talk about new ways of learning, open spaces, collaboration spaces that are more configurable, and bringing that back to Kinsner and making that a modern place for our students in the new ways of learning. And of course, the playground. Next slide. Preschool. So when you look at preschool, we have to provide, in the state of Ohio, preschool for children that are 3 years old, and then those folks with disabilities. And Dr. Reiber was talking about, we don't have the facilities everywhere to cater to those kids. So if you look at the map, the one place we do have that's sort of centrally located is Moransky. And if we move these specialized resources, teachers who understand how to work with those, classrooms that are purpose-built for our youngest of learners, and centralize all of them. So no matter, again, wherever you live in the square of Strongsville, you're a simple bus ride, not all the way across town, just to the middle of town. Everyone has access to the same resources, and they're the premium resources, and they're customized for those kinds of learners. Really great opportunity to create efficiencies, centralize those resources, centralize the people who can work with those kids. And that's our golden plan. That's what I'm calling it.
And so as we go back to that original slide that I shared, what was at the heart of our decision making and how did we guide decisions on the golden plan, as Eric coined it? It was about preserving those neighborhood elementary schools, as well as providing adequate and space design for our youngest learners in the center of our community to ensure that they have access and efficiency to school each and every day from all aspects of our community. So now that we know the plan and we know how we got here, let's take a look inside. I'm going to ask Jenny to come up, and she's going to take a look at what our buildings can look like as we move into kind of the visioning phase. But I will put a little asterisk on it, that these are all drafts. When you take a look at a bond project, you actually don't start designing a project until a bond passes. So these are just renderings of what could be a new vision for Strongsville City Schools moving forward.
Thank you. So as Dr. Ribas said, he's been the superintendent for 11 years, and I've been the assistant superintendent for 11 years. But interestingly, one of my earliest memories is driving through the city of Strongsville and thinking, where are we? There's nothing here. I think there was maybe Friendly's, maybe McDonald's at the time. And just now in the city, and all of the amenities we have, and all of the buildings we have, and the restaurants, it's been built up, and it's such a wonderful city. And one of the points of pride that I take is when I have friends that come to our middle school that don't live in Strongsville. And they say, wow, I was at your middle school, and oh my goodness, it's beautiful. And what a great place to learn, what a great gyms you have, and all of the facilities you have are just great. And so it's just such a point of pride to hear that. I was the principal at Center Middle School that used to sit on this property, and usually I heard, boy, that place looks like a dump. You know, it's not so great. And I would say, well, great things happen inside of it, but yes, it wasn't ideal for teaching and learning. And so it's just so exciting to me to hear this is the next phase potentially for our city, and to be able to drive through a city and see some of the things you're going to see here, I think would just be amazing. So I want to just share with you, we have the Albion site. So currently there's not a building on the Albion site. This is on Webster Road. And so as you look at this rendering, as Dr. Riva said, just a draft, but this is how the building would sit. You would, all the buildings that I'm going to show you, all the renderings that I'm going to show you have kind of a similar theme. So we have a separate area for our car drop-off. You'll have a separate area for bus drop-off, which is ideal for safety of our students as they go in and out of the building. You also have an access road that surrounds the building, so that's ideal for our safety forces to be able to get around the building, fire, police if necessary. There's a separate playground area. There's also, as you look at the building, not the entire building will be 2 stories. So that's kind of something people have talked about. Where you look at the blue, those would be 2 stories in that section, and those would be our learning areas. As Emily and Angela talked about the music and having to share space, you would have separate music rooms, separate art rooms, you would have a separate gym, a separate cafeteria. So we're solving a lot of those issues that we deal with each and every day. Separate admin offices. I think at Moraski, our principal has to give up his office for a classroom for next year. And separate media centers, and again, all of the amenities, Dr. Riva talked about having equity, so if a student has a disability and they live in that area, they are able to go, they would be able to go to their home school and receive all the necessary services that they need. So again, separate areas for all of our services. So this is an example of what potentially, again, draft, the outside of the building that would sit on the Albion site. Now, because there's no building there, we have a little bit more freedom. It's not in the middle of the neighborhood necessarily, so we can kind of design it a little differently and have a little bit maybe more on the exterior because we have a little bit more space in that building. So as we go through, each one will have a little bit of uniqueness to them, although they would be very much aligned in terms of the way that they look. This would be our Chapman site. So again, same idea that I mentioned before, access roads, separate drop-off areas, the learning spaces, the blue would be the 2 stories. But as you look at this, if you look at the red dots that surround that parking lot there, that's where the current building sits. So we would be able to construct a new building behind where the current building is while students would still be able to attend school through construction. And this is an idea of what Chapman could look like. So you see it's just a little bit different, but again, the aesthetics are very similar. We recognize that this is in a neighborhood, it's right in the middle of a neighborhood, so we want to also be good neighbors and not be too flashy, but make sure that it has that neighborhood feeling, fits right in there. Some of the safety things, and we'll get into the interior a little bit more, but just to point out, as Mr. Bruckner said, these are called bollards, these circles. They're not just for fancy design, it's a safety feature so that we can't just drive right through the building in case somebody would be crazy enough to do that. This would be our Sarar site, so same idea, the red dots are where the current building sits. We would build the building behind Sarar while students could still attend. And then once we were able to move into the new building, obviously we would construct the parking lot and make sure that we had space for that. Currently, again, the access road, sometimes the pictures are a little deceiving. Typically for elementary, we don't have buses that just sit there. They kind of go through, drop off, and leave. And again, the design itself and how we would look at it, these were just made to make sure that they fit on the site. But maybe the buses don't sit there, maybe we move them somewhere else, it just depends, but that would be all in the next phases of design. But again, same idea where you have different spaces and equitable spaces as each one of those that I just described. And then finally, this is a potential draft of what the Sarar building would look like. Okay, and as we take a look at the interior, as Mr. Bruckner mentioned, we talked about safety. So you're not just entering right into the building, there is a vestibule, and also the office area is also secure as well. Safety and security are #1 priority for our students and staff, and we want to make sure that we are up to date with our facilities, that we take those measures, and so this would be a rendering of what potentially, as you would enter the building, would look like. This would be
what a media center could look like, and as you can see, it's a little bit similar to our media center here at the middle school, if you've walked by that. Again, just this open idea of space, areas, flexible space where our students can collaborate, they can work together, teachers could bring their classrooms in here, and you know, check out books or just have some quiet time. Again, our students at the elementary level, it's unique to sit not in your desk, not in a row in the classroom, but to come to a space where you can either work with a friend, read silently on the steps like that student is doing. And so again, just kind of a unique space for teaching and learning. This would be a hallway going into our learning areas, into the classroom areas. Again, more flexible space so that we can be more innovative, we can put kids together. We're not just in a classroom or in a mobile unit where there's not space to work together and collaborate. We are moving to a different time in education, and we want our students to build the skills that they need, that are going to be necessary for their future so that they can communicate and collaborate. They're not passive learners just sitting there taking in information anymore. This is an example of one of our classrooms. And so again, we don't see the desks in rows that were traditional for traditional schools anymore. We have tables, we have flexible seating, we have whiteboards that are movable. The teacher's desk isn't necessarily in the front of the room. It's more in the back. Storage areas, again, that are easily accessible for our students. Right now in some of our hallways, we have these hooks where they have to go out there and put them, and they're like at eye level, and I always are careful not to hit my face on them because they stick out. And so just some of those things that make the transitions each and every day much easier for our kids, that they're not having to transition from the classroom to the hallway all the time. And then a cafeteria would be an example here, similar to where you walk in at the middle school. A lot of lighting, a lot of higher ceilings. As Emily shared, her stage is currently used for storage. You would have a stage there for proper musical performances, arts performances, or even if students, as we try to build their skills of communication, could do performances there as well for even a class. But again, we're not tearing this down so we can use it as a gymnasium later on. It's solely for a cafeteria, and you can see how the seats set up a little bit differently as well. And then the food area is off to the side there.
So as we take a look at the vision of what could be our elementary schools, I want to go back to what Eric said, that this is an optimized plan. We're not putting out in front of you the best of the best and everything on the wish list that we want there. We had a group of people that got together, deliberately went through to say, how can we ensure that we're optimizing the space that we need to meet the expectations of our community by educating and supporting our children for generations to come. And those give you some of the visions of what encapsulates some of that work that was there. So as we go to kind of the ending few slides of the presentation, we want to share with you the timeline. If the bond issue passes on May 5th when it's on the ballot for your consideration, what would be the cadence of work that would happen? And as I said earlier, the first step would be the Board of Education would have to hire an architectural firm. And once that architectural firm is hired, they would spend about a year in the design process. Now, I know we have some friends and neighbors from Sarar neighborhood here, and we know that at the back of Sarar, there's a pipeline. There's two pipelines, but one pipeline that goes behind the property that we're working with Buckeye on. And they actually have a meeting today to talk about next steps in our project, and so we'll hear about that later on this week. But in our preliminary conversations, to be able to take that pipeline that divides the back of Sarar property, they said, based on what they know right now, it is feasible to move that pipeline so that we can be ready for construction in summer of 27. So far, everything is aligning to have 1 year of design, and then you would have 2 years of construction. And as you can see in phase 1, we would be building all 3 elementary schools at the same time. Now, I'm a superintendent, right? I was a teacher, I was a principal, I was a superintendent. This is not my expertise. But that's why we work with people that build schools each and every day to say, can you get the labor? Can you get the subcontractors? Can you physically have the masons, the electricians, and the plumbers to do a project this scope all at the same time? And they have come back multiple times with a resounding yes, we can. So again, bond issue passes May 5th, 2026. 1 year of design, most likely summer of 27, construction starts, and it concludes in the fall of 29. And in the fall of 29, about 18 months before that, we would bring in a company that would take a look at all of our students in the district and start to rezone our schools to say these neighborhoods, these areas are going to go to the new Soror. And these areas are going to go to the new Chapman and the students that are going to the Albion site in Kinsner. And then we would have those students attend those schools in fall of 2029. And we'd still have some site work to do for about another year, but that's when those buildings would open, roughly three years from the passage of the bond. Then we need to go into phase 2. If you remember what Eric shared, first big part of it is building those 3 new 700 students buildings. The second part would be renovating Kinsner. We've talked about our space issues. There's no room to move kids in Kinsner. So we would have to completely empty Kinsner Elementary School, relocate all of our staff and students in the fall of 29 to Moraski. Moraski would be empty, right, because we've rezoned all of our students. So all of our Kinsner students would go to Moraski for a year. During that year, we would completely renovate Kinsner Elementary School, and in the fall of 2030, all of our Kinsner Elementary School would be done, and all of our students and staff would return to Kinsner. Now there's that last phase that we talked about, which is Moraski Elementary School. Now that Moraski is empty in the summer of 2030, we would begin the renovation and construction project there. That would take a year, and in the fall of 31, this whole project would be completed, and all students would be where they would be. We would open up our new centralized preschool for our preschool learners. And so that is the phasing of our plan from top to bottom for how things would go if passed in May. So let's talk about one of the last things, which is the cost. We've shared things on social media, and if you're a parent here, it might update, but it's important to understand that this is a bond issue, it's not an operating issue. A bond issue, as you see on your right side, can only go for construction, renovation, infrastructure upgrades. It can't be used for salaries, resources, operating expenses, things of that nature. So we've had a renewal levy on the past few years that didn't pass in the community. This is completely different. This is about building the buildings. It's not about any cash reserves or other funds that we have. This is for solely allocated towards this project. And so when you take a look at a bond project, take a look at it through the mindset of you going out and get a mortgage for your home. When you went and bought your home, if you have a home, you went out and you went to a bank and you got a mortgage. And the bank said, hey, we will provide you this mortgage and you are going to commit to pay it back over 30 years, 20 years, 15 years, whatever. You selected and the bank went and sold your debt to other people, and then you paid it back with interest over a period of time. That's the same issue that we're doing here, just on a larger scale. We are going out and saying, this project in total, we're going to ask for a bond. And so as we take a look at the cost of this, it will be on the ballot as $147.6 million. The total cost of the project, the 3 new buildings, renovated Kinsner, renovated and constructed Moraski, is about $159.1 million. You see that $10.5 million difference. The reason is the board had foresight and vision many years ago. And they said, we know we're going to have to invest in our elementary schools. We are going to allocate a portion of our funds so that when we ask the community, we can take that money and put it towards the project to lessen the ask to the voters by $10.5 million. So $159.1 million project is going to be on the ballot for $147.6 million. So again, if approved, the financial advisors we work with will go on the market. They will sell those bond issues. They will sell them at a specific interest rate, and then they will say, we are asking the Charlottesville community to pay that back, our taxpayers in our community, to pay that back over 36 years. So over 36 years, if you take a look at it, I understand that $147.6 million, it's a large number. But if we take a look at what it's going to cost the average homeowner in Charlottesville, the average homeowner in Charlottesville owns a $350,000 home. It is about $1 a day to put an 80-year investment into our city, into our schools, into our children. And so the one thing that I can't guarantee you a lot nowadays, but the one thing I can guarantee you is next year this project is not going to cost $147 million. It's going to cost probably 15% more than this, and the next year thereafter it's going to cost 15% more. And so now is the time to take a look at the work we're doing and the investment that we need in our students. And Mr. Mickel, you're good at these numbers, you're going to have to help me to remember, but in 2012, the community passed an $81 million bond issue. Remember how I said bonds like a mortgage, right? You get a certain dollar amount and there's an interest rate. Well, just like you can refinance your mortgage, we refinanced our bond project. And because we refinanced our bond project, this is the number, we saved the Strongville taxpayers $27 million. So this is not something that we're just saying, hey, this is what it is, we'll pay it back over 36 years. We'll continue to look and monitor the market, and when the time comes where we can refinance in a way that's going to be a benefit, and that's not money we took as a district and said, hey, we're going to do other stuff with it. The other stuff that Steve talked about of safety upgrades is because we were great stewards of the last bond project that we had those funds available. When we refinanced and got that $27 million reduction in the payback, that went straight to you as taxpayers. A reduction of that ask. And hopefully over time, that's earned your trust that we were going to continue to be good stewards as you consider this investment for generations to come, to build on the great legacy that we have in Strongsville and in Strongsville City Schools. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Mickel to share some final thoughts.
So I'm here to kind of summarize everything, and I'm going to start with some thank yous. So I'm going to thank everyone on the stage for taking the time to be here and to talk about something. Hopefully it came across that we're very passionate about this project, and we believe in this project. I want to thank some of our city partners. I see the mayor in the audience. I see Jim Carbone from council in the audience. We have a great partnership with the city, and they don't need to be here on a beautiful sunny evening, but they're just as invested and just as excited about it. So I wanted to thank them. And most importantly, I want to thank everyone here that took the time, because you certainly didn't need to be here on a very sunny evening in the springtime. But I hope that, A, we've answered some of your questions. I hope that we've earned your investment, and if there are more questions, we will have a Q&A session. So we've been doing this for about a month now, these information sessions. And one story I'd like to tell is about 2 months ago, our PTA had their Founders Day. And the PTA comes in, and we celebrate all the good things that the PTA has done on behalf of our students. And I was lucky to find a 1961 Moraski PTA record book. And the more things change, the more they stay the same. In 1961, the school district was looking to build a new high school and to build a new elementary school because we were growing and we needed additional facilities. And it was interesting how the news articles had some of the exact same conversations we're having with the community and that you're having with your neighbors. On the one hand, we don't need a new high school. We have plenty of room. There's not a problem. On the other hand, we're growing and we're going to be running out of room. And there were the same kind of stories. There was a story of the PTA moms on Town Square to talk about, yes, we do need a new high school. The more things change, the more they stay the same. So that resonated a lot with me and about just how time marches on, but the issues we have as a city, as a school district, as residents are very much the same. So I like to think in threes, and I look at this project, there's 3 issues that it addresses. One is our space constraints. If you have a question about whether we are running out of room, look at every trailer on our elementary schools. We're running out of room. We don't have the room to have all the students right now. And that problem is not going to go away. It's only going to get worse. The one school that doesn't have a trailer, if we don't address it with new buildings, it will have a trailer. And it's not a long-term solution to just keep on adding mobile trailers to our elementary schools. So that's the space issue. The other thing I think about is whether you call it safety, what have you. it always gives me pause to think about an active shooter or any kind of safety issue. This is an opportunity to purpose build our schools to address those issues. But I want you to think about not just the news issues, think about things like a medical issue. And we have those at our elementary schools. And when seconds truly count, having that ring road around each elementary school makes a difference, so that if police or fire or an ambulance have to get into our school, they can get to exactly where they need to be. You can think about things like having vestibules with the ability to lock the doors in an instant. Technology, the networking, all of those things, we work in partnership with the fire and the police, and this is an opportunity to raise that up. And then the third one, whether you want to call it modern education or technology or what have you, I think about that PTA from 1961, that record book. And in that record book, they talked about how they had a field trip to NASA Glenn to see a model of the Saturn rocket. 1961 was before we landed on the moon. You move forward to today, and it was just a few weeks ago that we had an Artemis II circle the moon again and land back safely. The world that our children are going to inherit is vastly different than the world from 1960. And this is our opportunity to rebuild our elementary schools and get them purposed for that. I'm very much about balance, and a lot of times you'll hear we need, it's too much, or we could do better with less. This plan is very balanced. It's not the 4-car garage with the 15-foot ceilings, etc. But it's reasonable for what I think meets the values of Strongsville. And I liked the way Eric mentioned it. It's the Goldilocks plan. It's in the middle, and it's just right. We used to have an elementary school, Drake. It was all open classrooms. It didn't work. If you looked at these plans, they balance things. You have traditional classrooms, but you have some modification of the desks and the chairs to deal with how we learn today, how students learn today. We also don't just have classrooms. We have the open space. We have the area for gym and theater and a play and all of those kinds of things. But it's very much reasonable. The last thing I would share with you about that balance, as a board member, we balance the needs of the taxpayer with the needs of the students. And I know there's older people in our community that dollar amount is difficult to look at. I also looked at the balance, and I was really excited to meet a couple that came to this meeting. They're looking forward. They're planning to have children and send those children to our grade schools. They're not going to want to send their children to grade schools where their children are going to school in a mobile classroom in a trailer. And so how do we balance those needs? And I think if you look at that $120 per 100,000, that's how we balance it. One way to look at it is how much is it going to cost. The other way to look at it is what are you going to get for your investment? And I think it's reasonable and balanced that $30 a month to get 3 new elementary schools, a energized Kinsner, and a purpose-built special needs preschool for $30 a month, knowing that every day we delay it, every day we push it off and think about it, it's only going to get more expensive. I think this is a valuable investment, and again, it's that idea of balance. It seems to be reasonable. So I don't want to go on too long because time is important and I can talk forever, but we did want to have some time for Q&A, and where are the microphones? So Erin is in the back with a microphone. If you raise your hand, she will come up to you for you to ask a question, and we'll see who is the best person to answer it.
Bill Beck, I know many of these people on the stage, and I know some of you. I retired from this building almost 2 years ago. I've worked in this building since it opened. I worked at Center Middle School, and I worked at Chapman. I moved here in 1998 from the state of Texas to Strongsville, specifically for Strongsville schools. I moved here, my family moved here specifically because of Strongsville High School. I have 2 kids that graduated from Strongsville High School. Schools are very important to me. The question, I have 3 questions for you. The first 2 are, what will happen to the Whitney and the Leavenworth preschool property if all this happens, whenever this happens?
So what will happen to the Whitney and Leavenworth property is the current Whitney Elementary School, the plan includes all demolishing and abating all of the 3 elementary schools, Chapman, Sarrar, and Whitney. So Whitney right now, we would be a vacant property, as Kristen shared. That group oversees all our vacant properties, so we don't have any specific plans for it. We've started some conversations with the city in terms of what needs may be there, but we're not looking to develop or do anything with that property at this time. Ludlow Preschool, we are looking to retain as a preschool. We've got some general ideas about how it can be used for some district programs, but that would be a property in a building that we would keep and use in a new way.
Okay. And my last question is, if this bond passes, or when in the future, let's say it does pass, how long will we be paying for this? How many years will the taxes go on to support this?
36 years.
Okay.
36 years.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's true.
Do you think the buildings will last 36 years?
The new buildings will, yes. Yeah.
I have a comment to make. As I mentioned before, I'm sorry, I see the wow factor in it. So when I drive by Albion, I would like to say, well, what a great school that is and how great it looks. Now, so far, based on these slides, when I look at the Albion, if you look at the roof, it reminds me of the Jetsons cartoon in the 60s, from 60s, and also the Sears building that was demolished in Middleburg Heights. Now, I would like to expect something really more in the wow factor. In addition to that, the inside, all those neon colors, I mean, can there be some other color than this neon colors? It's something that is more settling. These are kind of noisy colors, and that reminds me also 70s and early 80s where people used to wear those colors. So I would like to see a different, different design. Like I said, put some wow factor for that money because that is a lot of money. And I would expect something more, wow factor than I see here. Thank you.
So just rather quickly, I like the idea of wow factor. I like the idea of making sure the color scheme, et cetera, meets as many, is acceptable to the community as much as possible. Cameron mentioned it before. These are ideas, and as a board member, we have to balance. We can't just say, "Hey, give us the money, we'll figure it out later." But we also have to be reasonable, and we have not planned anything to the specifics of an architectural drawing that says it's going to be this color, this exact configuration, etc. It's not going to deviate wildly. We are going, our elementary schools, portions of that will have 2 floors. There's nothing I can do to suddenly figure out how to make the space so it's only 1 floor, and we're not going to make it 3 stories, right? But as far as color, configuration, design, when we earn the trust and the investment of the community, that's when the second exciting phase starts, where we get to put specificity to that. And it will be a conversation with the community at large, and it'll be a specific conversation with the neighborhoods to make sure we're good neighbors at each step of the way. But I really like the idea of wow factor.
Can you hear me now? Yes. Okay. I live back, well, kind of diagonal, the pipeline actually goes through my backyard. 40, so we started kindergarten there. And a lot of people are concerned about that $30 a month. People move from 2-story homes to the 1-story, and now they're back up against the school property is going to be back against their yards. And a lot of them are concerned about the traffic flow, because Cream Road right now is bad, and the surrounding streets like Beach Creek and Jonathan, people are lined up, people are picking their kids up and not riding the buses. And with 300 more kids coming, our parents are going to be doing that. So that's concerning a lot of them. And Cream Road's just a residential 2-lane road. And, tied in with the pipeline, the cost that we've come up with, does that include the pipeline cost? There's, I know you don't know exactly what it is, but also, our property values, they're going to be hit hard because it's right up against the properties. So that is a major concern for a lot of people too. Thank you.
Thanks, Barry, for your question. In terms of the, I'll start kind of at the end and work my way up. In terms of the property values, it would just be a question that I would ask your neighbors. A handful of your neighbors have an elementary school in their backyard now, right? If you take a look at the front of the property, they have their properties declined over the years because their backyard abuts to one of our elementary schools, whether it's Farrar or Chapman or Moraski. And so all we're doing is changing the location. And one of the things that we've known through the leadership of the mayor is as we add more of these amenities and these features where businesses want to relocate to Strongsville and make that their world headquarters, and community members want to come here, and we've got one of the highest rated zip codes in the country, that this adds value to say, we have brand new elementary schools that are going to meet our students' needs for generations to come. And so that's something that I understand, we've talked many times, right? I understand the concern of, that, hey, I bought this property or this house years ago, and it was a nice green field, and I could hear the kids playing, and it's been wonderful that now we're going to have an elementary building closer to it. And that's where we're going to do our best that we can to be good neighbors and to work with you, but we can't change the fact, as Mr. Micko said, that there's going to be an elementary closer to your property versus the properties that are there. Right, so the question was, if everybody didn't hear, why not just wait a little bit and tear the current Sarrar down, move the kids to a different school, and then build a new Sarrar? And so those are all things that are feasible aspects of the plan, but they're not the plan that was decided and determined, because when you wait those 3 years, you are going to increase the cost for nothing more, multi-million dollars, nothing more than because we waited longer. And so, if you could get the microphone again, because in conversation I lost the first 2 parts of your question.
A lot of people, our kids the neighborhood was just booming with kids when we moved in, and now they're all older people, and they're like, I can't afford the $30 a month. I mean, they were out now. Plus, they said, the traffic congestion.
Gotcha, thank you. So the $30 a month, that's a personal decision. We respect that. We shared our factual information about why this is a good investment for our community and our city, but I respect that people have to look at their own financial situation and say, hey, can I afford that? And that's a personal decision. In terms of the traffic, here's what I would look at for the 700 buildings. The 700 buildings gives a total capacity of how many students could go there. Just like all of our elementary buildings, and now we're over all of that, but when we open the new buildings, we built in some flexibility. So it may be 700, it may be somewhere between 600 and 700, but what I could share with you is based on the setup we have, where we're going to be able to separate school bus traffic from car traffic, as well as have a longer driveway in for the car traffic, we will be able to do the best we possibly can to alleviate some of the congestion on Freedom Road, Jonathan, some of the other roads. And Mr. Brecken, I'll turn it over to you because you've worked a lot with trying to increase our traffic issues on arrival distance.
Yeah, the biggest issue as far as because it's located more towards Freedom Road, there's very limited parking and very limited driveway there. By pushing it back, I understand the concerns that it causes, but it also allows for more cars to be on our property at one time than is currently configured there. Just this year, we put, to alleviate that concern, we put the playground in the back and put parking in the front, and then we did a circle that seems to be doing much better than, we had a lot of stop and go traffic. That's the other thing that I've seen as people are developing these new schools. They are taking traffic more into account. And the secret to not congest the neighborhood schools is keep the traffic flowing as much as possible. So what we're having trouble with at some of the elementary schools we have currently is you have stop and go traffic. You have a bus loop that has to be integrated with the car loop. You have staff members, hopefully those students at the elementary school, but staff members coming in and parking their cars. And every time you add that, you add stops. Every time you add stops, you add congestion. So what these plans indicate, while that may not be the actual plan that's implemented, is that it is being factored in where there will be separate circles, separate loops that are consistently moving to help alleviate that traffic.
Hi everyone, my name is Sean Beluski. I have a second grader, a kindergartner, and a 2-year-old, and my kindergartner and second grader at Mrs. Young's Sarar. This is just more of a comment, I guess, for everyone here. First of all, thank you all for showing up tonight. Again, on a sunny Monday or sunny Tuesday. I represent our 4 Strongsville group. We're a committee of community leaders, parents, and community members, and we're strongly in support of, obviously, this bond issue. So I guess my ask is really not to the group on the stage, but to the group here. If any of you are interested in helping us in this final push in the last 3 weeks, so that way 3 weeks from tonight we can be celebrating, solidifying our foundation for the future. Please come up to me afterward. We need all the help we can get. And as a parent who's in that drop-off line every single day, I can say, Mrs. Young and her team have done an exceptional job, but there are safety issues, and the plan that's proposed here, at a minimum, will absolutely, cure those. So thank you, everyone, and thank you for the time tonight.
Thank you. That was surprising. As far as number of vehicles, we'd have to go and see, because we are now changing how many kids are being delivered to the schools with buses, because we are emptying out one of the elementaries. When we rezone, unfortunately, once we decide that, then I'd be able to give you a better answer of how many buses are coming through, how many of those students, because we do know the percentage currently of how many students are dropped off versus how many are delivered by bus. We're going to be changing that whole table when we move people to different buildings. So unfortunately, I can't give you the first answer now because I just don't have the data to give that to you. The second thing is, it would be the usual about twice a day that you would have the most congestion. Of course, when school's opening and then when school lets out, you would have, as we had kindergarten half day, you would have some traffic going in and out, but not nearly at the volume. So, like you live next to, I assume you live next to one of the elementaries. It's very congested for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then everybody's in the building, and then everybody goes about their day. That's why we're trying our best to address all the traffic, to get as much on the property as possible, so we're not congesting the side streets as much as they are now with the current configuration.
I can talk a little bit about arrival and dismissal. So when I came last year, the process was kids who were car riders would just be dismissed from the building. They would walk out, we would have a staff member out in the parking lot. There were parents that would park their cars out there. There were other parents that would make like a pull-through loop. So it was a huge safety concern that kids were walking out, cars were driving in and out of the parking lot. We were really concerned someone was gonna get hit. So Steve Breckner worked with us. He came up with this great plan that we would have all the cars come through. Parents, for the most part, don't get out their cars. Now, we do still have a few that park, and some of that is because we do have 3 special needs, intensive needs units of students at our building. So some of those parents do need to park so their students can come out with an aid and get into their car safely. But we created a process where the cars come up into 3 lanes. All students are given a number. We look at the number on the car, and then the kids will then go out to their car when they get to a safety zone, so we can keep a closer eye on them as they're walking out to their car. So the reason it changed over the last year was for safety. And just like what they're saying, if the school building is moved further back, we can separate buses out of those lanes right now. So right now, we have buses who are waiting to get in, who are sitting there a little bit longer until they can pick up the kids and get out, and we have cars coming at the same time. So if we can separate those two, I think that will reduce the line that is formed, but also with it being further back, we'll be able to get a lot more cars in and out. It's the best plan that we can come up with right now that's the safest. I believe it's about 80 cars, so kids, sometimes it's 2 or 3 kids that ride together, but about 80 cars that come in and out every day during our bus time as well, and we get them in and out within 10 minutes, which I think is great. We really are pretty quick, and we do the best we can to reduce that time, but that's why the process is the way it is now.
So these are the questions just for everybody so you hear is that, we have cars that are going in the neighborhood streets. This issue that you're describing is happening at all 5 of our elementary schools as well as our middle school. And so we could take a look at places where we have adequate ingress and egress for people to move across the property, but we have parents that sometimes don't always follow the directions for pickup and drop off for convenience factors. So we do the best we can to message. I can't sit up here, nobody can sit up here and say, this is going to solve every issue we have, because the issue that we're finding in some places is human nature, that I don't want to go wait in that line, so I'm going to wait in a neighborhood street. And we've had the same conversation, haven't we, at every elementary school we've been at. But what we do know is that when we have a longer distance from the street to the drop-off zone, we can accommodate more cars, more traffic in a quicker fashion that has the potential to reduce people wanting to create their own rules because they're going to be in this process for 5 to 7 minutes versus 8 to 10 or 11 to 12 minutes. So again, I can't guarantee that this new process is going to solve all issues or eliminate people from being in the neighborhoods, but it's only going to help.
And I just kind of want to piggyback on that because I find the conversations fascinating. We had very similar issues at the middle school, and did the new middle school make those issues go away? No, and if anyone tells you that, they're lying. What the new configuration did was make it better. And so things like having a separate bus line from the parent traffic. Everyone knows those 3 years their students are going to the middle school is one of the things that you grin and bear it. But it is better, it is improved compared to what Center was prior to that middle school. We still have parents who go into the Goldies, the old Goldies parking lot and cheat, etc. That's a little bit of human nature. So for Sarar, I can tell you, we're not going to make those problems in the morning or in the evening disappear. But I do think they'll become better. And that's one of those balancing acts Because if we don't move the school back, we don't generate a longer driveway. And if we don't generate a longer driveway, the cars are going to back up on Priam instead of in that driveway. There's no perfect answer, but I do think we can make it better. And I know as one board member speaking for the board and the administration, we want to be good neighbors. We want to make it better. We're open to hearing those things. I can tell you the opportunities to improve those kinds of things, the opportunities to improve drainage, etc., we have real possibilities with this construction project. Without this construction project, we don't have real possibilities, and we're only looking at more trailers on a short driveway, and those problems are only going to get exacerbated.
If I could just take a moment, because everybody up here has an educational background. I have an educational background, but in my current role, I also want to emphasize the new construction just doesn't take care of what you see. It also takes care of what you're not seeing. What you're not seeing are water lines that are aging every day. What you're not seeing are sewer lines that are aging every day. We have had a great relationship with the city to the point where at the Whitney property a few years ago, we had a sewer line completely cave in, and the whole building became what's called supercharged. What that means for us is what used to smell nice one minute doesn't smell nice the next minute, because the sewer line caved in because of all the tree roots and everything else compromised that line. We had to put in a whole new section of sewer line. Those types of things are going to keep continuing to happen as these buildings age. So to take down the building in place and just put a new face on it will address some of the concerns that people may have with the location of the building. But if you also don't fix the underlying issue of what's going on beneath the ground, being Sarar neighborhood, I don't have to tell you about the aging water lines that are out there, that every time it drops too cold, something pops, or if somebody sneezes too hard, a water line pops out there. That's because of the age of that. And also, I do want to take the opportunity to change the narrative a bit, because I did read some articles online. Before we started this process, we knew that that pipeline was there, diagonally crossing that property. All of us knew about the Columbia gas. It was pretty obvious with all the construction that was happening over there on the north side of the property. But we were aware of this. And something to consider is, even if we did build in the exact location, we would be building a bigger building. There are certain setbacks from those oil lines, that transmission line, that still needs to happen. So if we put a bigger building there, we are flirting with some of those setbacks that we always knew that that pipeline was there, but we were never building anything by it, so we weren't concerned about it. When we put the new playground out there, we knew we weren't going to go as deep as that pipeline, so we didn't bother with that pipeline. No matter what we do over there, we are going to have to address this pipeline, and I believe one of the questions was that built into this cost? The answer is that was all factored in, because from day one, when we started partnering with this company for this visioning project, we told them, here's the map, here's where that pipeline is, we have to do something to address that. So I do want to take the opportunity to change that narrative that I did see online, that this is.
We want to make sure in the time we have that we get any other questions that are available, because some of these questions we've answered before. So, Dan, any other questions out there that anybody has? Yes, come down here.
How are you, I believe this is going to pass. My home is in the backyard of Chapel. Chapel's in my backyard. How are you going to continue to communicate with us as neighbors, as you say, good neighbors? Once the construction and once the architect they're ready to start digging. I'm very concerned that, you are so close to us. The building and the road, that the design that we just saw, it's going to make us feel like we're going to need to move. And that's my biggest concern. I'm a supporter of schools. I work in different school districts. I love supporting teachers. But I'm very concerned my backyard is going to be, you're going to be so close to me, it's going to feel uncomfortable. And once this construction starts, for 2 years and the mess that comes with it, how are you going to communicate with us and keep us as good neighbors to be supportive of this project and continue to be supportive of this project?
Yeah, thank you for that thoughtful question. I want to answer, right?
I think your feelings are real.
Absolutely.
And I hear you in that this is the challenge with, I think, just change in general. I think we're facing a bunch of situations where it's net positive for the whole community, but is it fair to say that it impacts everyone in the same positivity? It doesn't. And I think, maybe just hearing that and knowing that we see you, and that is a challenge, it's real. And you deserve the right to feel the way that you feel. We don't have a lot of great options for all of the business case that we laid out. Expanding students, safety issues, we don't have a lot of property, we don't have a lot of choices. But this, in the Goldilocks plan, is the best of the choices that we can make. Now, if some people are disproportionately affected in a way that's not optimal, you're 100% right, it does. And I think that's, that's life. Like, unfortunately, those things happen to people. As far as being good neighbors, I think we have to continue to listen. And I'm willing to listen. I know that Rich is willing to listen. The board members are willing to go into the communities and listen to what you guys are saying. And I think I heard Dr. Riba say, we're designing this for an entire year. It doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens actually out loud, in public. We're going to be thinking about it and doing it, and Bonnie can have thoughts on colors, and we'll bring in color scientists who talk about what are the optimized colors for learning environments to keep kids engaged, but not so much that it gives them anxiety. And I think for our communities and our neighbors, we want to be there to say, what can we do to make what's not optimal more bearable for you? Because I can't make it go away, but how can we make it better? Can we put trees there? Can we put a mound? Can we do different things? Can the second story be further away so you don't feel closed in? I think all of those things are fair. And I think everyone here wants to hear those things, and we'll continue to listen. And like I said, nothing happens in a vacuum. Like, this isn't a black box where you go away and something happens to you. Be part of that conversation. Talk over 2 years. Know that there will be challenges. And we know that we'll get phone calls that, hey, you can't start construction this early. The beeping is driving us crazy. Those things are going to happen, right? Again, these are the bumps of life. But I think that's our commitment back to the community, is that we're here, we're in it together, we're listening to you. We know that not everything is ideal, and we're building for as much flexibility as possible, and we're hoping that you give us the grace to sort of maneuver and be flexible too as we try to serve the greater community.
And I'll just add, practically speaking, we're going to have that design process the same way Dan sent invitations to the neighborhood meetings. We're going to continue to do that, and we'll make sure that you have the opportunity not to just find out after the shovels start digging, but to find out before. And, you know, I don't want it to sound trite that we're going to be good neighbors, but you're going to give us the feedback. If we're not communicating well enough, you have 5 board members that you will be able to contact by email and telephone, and we'll address it.
I just want to say there are quite a few opportunities as a community member that doesn't have children in the school to stay informed. Dr. Riba has a newsletter that goes out strictly to community members. There's tons of opportunities if you look on the Facebook page to stay informed and to get information. Mr. Faust sends out a newsletter, I think it's every week, and I don't remember. But so I would encourage everybody to reach out to the district, find out how you can find out information, because it is out there. It does sometimes take a little bit of work to get on the website or to get involved with the newsletters that get sent out, but I get all the information, and I can tell you, they do provide a lot of information.
I just had a comment about the ring for the buses. I live near Sarar as well, and the traffic is terrible where I have to go down Marks Road sometimes and come up the back way. I do think it's a little bit, like, not really giving all the information that ring road is not going to be allowed. Those buses coming through are allowed. They're sitting idle, they're allowed. And for having that in people's backyard where they now have a field and a playground is going to be a whole different sound. If not a deterrent to their property value. Having those buses just sitting there idle, any kind of I don't know, smell or whatever that's coming in, that's going to be a problem. And number two, and the second thing I just wanted to ask is, what if this doesn't pass? What are your plans?
So in terms of what if this doesn't pass, two things. The Board of Education makes decisions on what is going to be the future of the bond issue based on recommendations that me and our team made to them. So if it doesn't pass, conversations afterwards would be what are the next steps, and that's something for the board to have those discussions with at that time. In terms of the busing and transportation, as we said, it is a draft, and we understand that as we've talked about, not just at Sarar, but every building. The concern has come up about the loop road and where buses are going to be. And as Jenny shared, kind of that idea that they need to park there, that's not accurate to our elementary level. And so our elementary, they either pick up and go or drop off and go. But Steve, talk a little bit about the rules for idling and the duration that they're at the elementary buildings.
Yeah, currently they're there for, you said, like 5 minutes? Okay. There are rules that are in place as far as what kind of emissions that they could be giving out, so as far as the smell and things like that. And also, I know that we have a GPS system that we have a program that buses can only sit idle for so long before we tell them to not sit there idle for so long. So that's something that, of course, I can look into and make sure that those rules are being followed as well as we move forward with the project and also with what's currently happening.
And I would also say one advantage that we have here with the new design, wherever the bus drop-off happens to be, is we have longer span of opportunities for students to enter and exit a bus, which will speed up the timeliness of that. If you just take a look at practically at any of our buildings, how condensed it is for bus traffic to be there. It takes a little bit longer for getting in and out, as we talked about, but when you have that long road as an option, again, entering and exiting the buses can speed up. Any other questions? Well, again, on behalf of everybody, the team that's here with me, I want to greatly thank you for your engagement and your work. I think as Eric said, I want to reiterate, I thought it was well said that we understand, the opportunities that this has for an entire community, but the impact that this has on individuals. And as I've shared as I've gone to the neighborhood meetings, if I had a backyard like you had a backyard, I would be at this meeting asking the same questions. So I understand that, and all I can commit to you is that we will continue to be good partners with you as we move to the next phase. Should this pass, there will be community meetings, as Richard said, to take a look at what this could be. But as you go home and you think about it, if there's any questions that we haven't answered yet that you still have on your mind, please feel free to reach out, and we'd be more than happy to continue the conversation. We'll hang out for a little bit afterwards if there's any individual questions you have for us, but again, on behalf of all of us, thank you for being here and your engagement in Strongsville City Schools.